Yeah. Coming at me like that, like whoa. I don't even feel like that, like whoa. You ain't even see my stacks, like whoa. We up on the sea, but that's my bow. Coming at me like that, like whoa. Coming at me like that, like whoa. Coming at me like that, like whoa. Coming at me like that, like wish that I care, but I don't. And I swear, if you want, we can flow. Coming ready for the smoke. Murder she wrote, but I don't even dare. I got places to go. Coming ready for the show. Sacred the goat. We got royal affairs. We gon' win on the low. Coming ready for the glow. You taking notes, have a seat, take a chair. You may think that we cold. Coming ready for the snow. Try to bear the weight, but it's too heavy. Try to get away, but it's too deadly. Gotta keep it sharp, so we stay edgy. Can I get ahead, so we stay ready? Coming at me, that's sad, that's joke. I cannot believe these lies, I'm woke. All that agree, but why you broke? When y'all need, come get your folk. I actually soar over these waves. When I get paid, I gotta know people to pay, places to go. Watch what you say, watch what you coming at me like that, like whoa. I don't even feel like that, like whoa. You ain't even see my stacks, like whoa. We up on the sea, but that's my bow. Coming at me like that, like whoa. Coming at me like that, like whoa. Coming at me like that, like whoa. Coming at me like that, like I sit back, I'ma go and get that. I just wanna give back, people call me Big Black. I just got my whip back, asked me when I got here, told her that I've been back. Brought a couple wins back, double cup of no act. I don't really have beef, but I'm still a Big Mac. And you know I got green, now we bridging the gap flow with me and my team. Cause we know how to scrap when you making a scene. Came up from the dirt, yeah I know my worth. No I will not sell, niggas gotta work. Do not kiss and tell, no I do not serve. But I'll ride these waves, so get up off my turf. I actually soar over these waves. When I get paid, I gotta know people to pay, places to go. Watch what you say, watch what you coming at me like that, like whoa. I don't even feel like that, like whoa. You ain't even see my stacks, like whoa. We up on the sea, but that's my bow. Coming at me like that, like whoa. Coming at me like that, like whoa. Coming at me like that, like whoa. Coming at me like that.
What's going on, Beaches? What up? What up?
Hey, yeah, whoa, yeah. Coming at me like that, like whoa, yeah. Coming at me like that, like whoa. I don't even feel like that, like whoa. You ain't even see my stacks, like whoa. We up on the sea, but that's my bow. Coming at me like that, like whoa. Coming at me like that, like whoa. Coming at me like that, like whoa. Coming at me like that, like wish that I care, but I don't. And I swear, if you want, we can flow. Coming ready for the smoke. Murder she wrote, but I don't even dare. I got places to go. Coming ready for the show.
Yeah, here we go, fam. Bam. Swole Normuth.
The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, the bacon is sizzling.
Welcome to the Daily Motherfucking Swole. Testing. Is this mic on? Is this mic making sick fucking gains? Is it? Welcome everyone to episode 1114 of the Daily Mother Swole, the most muscular swolecast, beardcast, broadcast, gangcast, mancast, pimpcast, seascast, and the slaycast in the realm, because when I flex, you flex, we all flex our biceps. Thank you so much for joining me live on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch, and fucking the old ear holes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and more. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. If you are not yet subscribed, you can get all the links directly at swolenormusx.com. Click on podcast in the main menu, or you can just go to your favorite podcast app and click the fucking subscribe button. How else are you going to know when the new episodes drop? Because sometimes I'm traveling and I'm not going to be live. You have to plug in and get the latest podcast, because we're going to be doing some stuff. There's going to be some traveling and some moving around this summer, so make sure that you are plugged in there, because I'm going to be posting some different types of daily swoles, which are going to be cool. It's going to be cool, but they probably will not be live, so you have to make sure that you subscribe there so you don't miss a day, because I'm not stopping every day. Just because I can't live stream sometimes doesn't mean I'm not going to be here every day in your ear holes tickling with my little what up? Jacqueline, what's up? Annie, April over on Facebook, Andre, Kanana, Shane, Kayla, Sean, what up? What's good? What's the latest and the greatest? Brand new YouTube video, Ask Papa Swolio. I posted that up a little while ago, so later than normal, but earlier this afternoon. Today is going to be a leg workout. The day is running long, so I'm behind on a lot of shit. What else is new? Trying to catch up with the old editing tip and some stuff that I hadn't want to get done, but tomorrow is another day. Today is a day. The hours come and the hours go, but to the gym we shall go. To the gym we shall go, and I shall go to the gym today. What'd you guys train today? What's good? Remember, tomorrow is the Sunday Fun Day Q&A-ness, so I will be taking a ton of questions tomorrow, and I'll be making that very clear that tomorrow we'll be doing a lot of questions. Today I want to talk about leg training and some basics for leg training, some leg training essentials that you all should not be going without, because I get a lot of questions. I just posted a video on my Instagram page, the feed, IGTV, whatever you want to call it. And it was for skier squats, and got a bunch of responses already and some DMs about it. So that is definitely not a leg day essential, but there are some things that you should be aware of when it comes to your leg training, and some things that might limit what you choose, and some things that should limit what you choose, because a lot of times you'll read something from a bodybuilder or someone that's bigger than you, or someone that has what you want. You want to be leaner, you want to be bigger, you want to have more shape in your legs, whatever it is, and you'll just go and copy that exercise. But when it comes to leg training, there's a lot of subtle variations that can either lead you towards an injury potentially, or be done properly. And a lot of these exercises are very mobility based. Even the basic ones, which is a squat, and that's a leg training essential. However, a lot of people aren't even ready to do a squat. As basic as a squat is, as fundamentally functional as a squat is for a human fucking being to squat, it's very sad. It's disgustingly pathetic, in all honesty, if someone cannot do a proper fucking squat. You are a human being, and because you have neglected your mobility, and you have neglected your posture, you've neglected your balance, you've just neglected your existence. Literally neglected your body, neglected your health. If you can't do a squat, you need to be putting in all the effort you possibly can to do a complete bodyweight squat, as much as ass to grass as possible. You should be doing yogi squats. You should be working on that ankle and hip mobility every fucking day obsessively, because that's a crack in your foundation. If you can't squat properly, if you have imbalances that severe that cause you to round forward, lean forward, that don't allow your shins, that your body doesn't allow, it restricts dorsiflexion, and that is pulling the toes and the foot up towards the shin. So when you squat, if you have limitations with mobility, you're not going to be able to bring that shin forward over your toes more, because you don't have that ankle mobility. So your body is going to lean forward more, and then you put more pressure on your back. And that's why a lot of people hurt their backs doing squats, or they get that butt wink at the bottom because they don't have the ankle or the hip mobility. And of course, this can also be affected by your shoulder mobility and your thoracic spine, and rounding and, lurching forward in a car and at a desk, just kind of upper cross syndrome, whatever you want to define it as. It's just wrong movement. And because the body is such an amazing adaptation machine, you are going to adapt to whatever position. So if you're rounded and you're in a bad position and you're curved, you look like fucking Quasimodo, your body is going to adapt to being like Quasimodo. Your body is going to adapt to have a rounded spine. Your body is going to be rounded forward. That's what your body is going to do. It's going to adapt to you being in a bad position. If you put your body in a good position regularly, your body is going to adapt to be in a good position. This is not complicated. It's adaptation. As much as your body will adapt to exercise, your body is going to adapt to lack of exercise. So it's important to correct these issues, and you can't wait to correct these, because it's going to come back and it's going to bite you in the ass with an injury. That's what it's going to lead towards. Flat foot versus lifts for squats. If you have a flat foot, you need to be barefoot more often. You need to be training and strengthening your feet. I'm sick and tired of answering these fucking flat foot questions, and it's not like because of you. So if you asked a question about having flat feet, oh, I have flat feet, what do? You were born with lower arches. It doesn't mean you have a weak foot. It means you need to fucking use your feet. No one was born with shoes. If you have a flat foot, a flatter arch, a higher arch, you need to strengthen it. pull your fucking thighs out to the sides. Do a little hip abduction. It's going to pull the arch up. Push into your big toe. Lift your fucking arch. Invert your feet a little bit. Like, actively do this, because you're wearing shoes that are weakening your feet and compounding that weakness in your foot. Your feet are staying flat and weak in whatever issues you claim you have because you're wearing footwear, because you're wearing orthotics, because you are putting in these fake fucking artificial things that are still restricting your feet. You're putting your foot in a fucking shoe. You're literally binding your feet. When you put your foot in a shoe, it's foot binding. It's a very mild form of foot binding. I don't even think it's mild. I think it's pretty severe, considering the elevation of the heel, considering the toe box is very pointy. Women's high heels are literally foot binding. You're just not bending the toes underneath, but it's foot binding. It's a modern day foot binding, and most people don't even think of it anywhere close to that, but that's what it is. And that's why our feet are misshapen. That's why our posture is off. That's why we have foot problems. That's why we have hip problems and knee problems and back problems. It's a major part of it. But no one wants to talk about that enough, because everyone likes their Nikes, their fucking Yeezys, and these ugly ass shoes that make you look like a fucking clown wearing moon shoes. It looks ridiculous. When you start staring at people's feet and looking at their shoes, it looks so fucking weird to not see someone's foot. It's so weird to look at someone wearing shoes. It's completely strange. It's very strange, and it's very abnormal. And I know some of you might disagree, but that's the lay of the land. Now, if you need steel-toed boots or something for work, that's what footwear should be for. It should be used for a tool. If you're in a high-risk environment and there's fucking steel beams dropping all the time and you're, whatever it is, obviously you don't want to lose your foot. You don't want to fucking chop your foot off. So there are certain tools and environments where you need those shoes, but most environments don't require that. And I get a lot of questions about footwear. And because we're talking about leg training, everything starts at the foot. Your foot is the only contact point with the ground. So whatever position your foot is in, whatever position your foot is responding to the earth, is going to lead towards what alignment you have above the foot, whether it's the knee or the hip. Likewise, if you have imbalances at the hip, it's going to translate down, and the feet are going to have an effect. So if you have weak hip muscles, weak glutes, you have tight hip flexors and these types of things, you can get a lot of that pronation that flattens or pushes the arch down or puts pressure on your knees. So that's a big problem. And a lot of people that have flat feet are very sedentary. They sit around a lot. They wear shoes. They don't have active hip muscles. They're not balanced. They're not practicing yoga and doing corrective exercises. 99.9% of the population doesn't know what the fuck that is, period, let alone are they doing it properly. So it's time to address your body as an actual body. It's something that's adapted to your situation. You're not born with shoes on. So what would you have done if no shoes? You just be like, oh, I have flat feet, I can't. No, it's because you are not working those muscles. I'm not saying take off your shoes and go run a marathon, but you need to start waking up these body parts. You need to start waking up the areas of your body that will allow you to strengthen your feet, that will allow your foot to be the natural way that it's supposed to be. And it's a problem. It's a problem. Why do you think women take off their shoes and they massage their feet? Oh, my feet ache. Yeah, because you're shoving them into fucking high heels. The stupidest thing. It makes you look good, but you can also go to the gym and look good too. You don't have to wear high heels and give this artificial lower back arch and push your butt out more because you don't have ass muscles, because you don't exercise. You sit at a desk, you wear heels, you arch your back. That doesn't make you more fit. That doesn't make you more attractive. It gives you chronic back pain, and it's going to fuck with your neck. It's going to fuck with your shoulders. It's going to fuck with your knees. And you're going to have issues when you're older. You're going to be all crippled old lady with a rounded back, like all these little old ladies walking around. All the spine is just decomposed and they're all brittle and stiff and hunched over. People just decay and die. It all starts from the hips and from the feet. It starts from all of these habits that we perpetuate through our lives. And, for some people, it might seem extreme to say that, but shoes are weird. Shoes are weird. The more barefoot you are, the more weird and uncomfortable and awkward it is every time you put on shoes. You're like, what the fuck? It's so weird to walk in shoes when you're barefoot a lot. And for those of you that are barefoot often, you know the same thing. You understand. You know what I'm talking about. And you can get better shoes. You can get barefoot type shoes, Vivo barefoot. People mention Zero shoes. I still don't like those. They still feel fucking weird. I have a pair of Vivo barefoots. and they're minimal. They're just, I'm still wearing a sneaker. I'm still wearing a shoe. I still don't like it. So I have my own preference, and you don't have to necessarily do what I do, but facts are facts. You're not supposed to wear shoes. You're not supposed to wear footwear. You're supposed to have as minimal a covering as possible, because it's like your hand. It's like your hand. You don't put your hand into a fist and and tape it up and bind it up. You wouldn't be able to use your hand. Same thing with your foot. If you bind your foot up, you can't use your foot. You can't feel the ground. You can't feel the ground. You can't feel what you're stepping on. And I have a lot of people asking me, but what if you step on something? You cut your foot, or you step on a pebble, or this. That's why you have fucking eyes. That's why you have eyes. You look where you're walking. I get a lot of questions about, don't you bang your toe? Don't you you're in the gym, don't you smash your toe or bang it on something? No, I have eyes. I don't drop the weight on my fucking foot. If you're barefoot or you're wearing minimalist shoes, you're more aware of it. I wear my 5 fingers. I wear my little classics. So it's like a slipper, but I don't bang my foot because I watch where I step. I look where I'm going, and I can feel the ground. I actually have much more ankle stability, of course, because I train it. But when you're barefoot or you get used to that, you don't roll your ankle as often. Like you wouldn't, because when you step on something, your foot curves, your foot absorbs the shock, and it can twist and it can bend. I remember like a week or two ago, I put on sneakers or something for the first time, and I stepped on the edge of a curb or a rock or something, and my whole foot like flipped over to the side, and my ankle's like yank. I didn't sprain my ankle because I have good stability, but because the sole of the sneaker and the shoe is flat, it just goes. So you're more likely to sprain your ankle and twist something and tweak something when you have just a flat plane. You hit something round and it goes over, your ankle doesn't have a choice, doesn't have a chance. But if your foot is free to bend and curve, you're just going to kind of absorb that and keep on walking. You don't have the same kind of issue. You literally don't. It's really weird. In a good way. It's weird in a good way. It's something that we need to get back to nature. We need to get more connected with our environment. And when it comes to leg training, these basic exercises like a squat, these basic exercises like a lunge, all these things that people have issues with, it starts at the bottom with the foot. It starts at the hip. It starts with correcting all of these issues that we are perpetuating by sitting down too much, by standing in one place too much. There are a lot of people that like these standing desks. They're great, but you shouldn't be standing in one place all day either. So as much as a standing desk might seem, oh, that's better than a sitting desk, not really. If you're standing in one spot all day, you should be standing, you should be sitting down a deep squat, you should be getting back up, you should be moving around all the time. Standing in one spot is exhausting, and it's really bad for you too, just to be stiff and in one place. So you always need to be doing something. You always need to be moving, walking. If I'm standing at my desk, I have a tennis ball under my feet, or I'm like, standing on my toes, or I'm in a deep squat. I'm always doing some type of mobility, some type of movement, because it's just a better way for your body to be. The more movement, the better. The more movement, the better. All these questions tomorrow. We're going to be doing the Sunday Fun Day Q&A, so make sure you show up for that. If you have questions that are off topic today, we can get into that more tomorrow. Let's see, April, I was wearing steel toe shoes, but I soon won't have to since I'm quitting and going back to school. Cool. And blisters. I have the worst ones right now from training barefoot and then running a 10K in sneakers. You're going to get a lot of blisters in sneakers for sure, because you're rubbing where your shoes shouldn't be rubbing. You might get blisters from anything. You can get blisters from being barefoot completely if you're not used to being barefoot. If you do any kind of activity that pushes you past what your foot has adapted to, you are going to get a blister. That's just a reaction. But just like your hands, if you work with your hands, you get calluses. If you work with your feet, you're going to get calluses. Now, everyone's like, I want to have nice, sexy, clean feet. Okay, it's definitely not natural to have smooth baby feet, but I do understand that. That's just a society type of thing, but you're supposed to have calluses on your feet. You're supposed to have this toughness to your feet because of that adaptation. If you don't walk on gravel and outside in grass and you don't expose your feet to those types of frictions, your body isn't going to adapt to handle it. It's just like building muscle. Your body isn't going to build muscle if you're not exposing it to weights. If you're not going to an environment in which your body is under stress, your body's not going to adapt. Why would your body build muscle if it's not lifting weights? There's no need to build muscle. Muscle is only Muscle is a side effect of exposing your body to a stressful environment. You're exposing your body to an environment where it's like, fuck, I got to try to lift this 10 times again and again. And if you keep on exposing your body to that environment, it's going to grow muscle to make it easier. It's adapting. You're always putting it under stress. It's going to adapt to handle that stress. And that's how the body works. Your body will adapt to handle stress, whatever that stress is, whether it's being barefoot, whether it's doing mobility, whether it's doing yoga, whether it's doing cardio, whether it's doing swimming, whether it's going to a sauna and sitting in a hot room. You get used to that. You'll get used to doing a lot of different things. You get used to the cold, you get used to wind, you get used to anything. It's just adaptation. It's just adaptation. And being sedentary or being in one position is one of the worst things that you can do for a human, because one of the things that I guess ages people more is when you get older, you lose mobility. And that's why I push yoga so much. That's why I push this mobility type training, this mobility type and active recovery type approach in all of my content, because I trained older people, geriatric populations for a long time. And it's depressing because people just can't fucking move. So they're not dead, they're alive, but they're pretty much dead. They can't move on their own well. They can barely do basic functional tasks, like they need help. So they're not independent. And those are like the first steps of the downslide until they just can't be alive anymore and they die. So in order to avoid that type of like slow demise of immobility, you got to keep being mobile. That's the biggest thing. We all like strength. Okay, we like to have muscles. We like to have shape. That's not going to fucking matter when you're older. It's going to be mobility. Strength does matter, of course. You want to be able to get off the ground, but strength as a component of mobility is the most important thing. That is by far the most important thing. The strength to be able to move properly. And I'm not talking about strength to be able to lift 500 pounds. I'm talking about the basic functional strength of stabilizer muscles and of these mobility muscles, everything that you need in order to move properly, to get up off the ground, to do a deep squat, to do a push-up, to do a pull-up and function in society and in this world. That's going to be the biggest thing. That's going to be the most important thing as you get older. And if you're in your 20s or 30s, it might sound like, okay, I just want abs. Of course you do, jabroni. Of course you do. Of course you do. So keep putting it off. Keep trying to load up more weight on the bar. Keep on focusing on all that shit. Keep leaving this to the last minute. Wait till you get fucking hurt that you're going to wish you paid attention. And not getting injured in the gym is one of the best ways to ensure consistent progress. A lot of people are just getting hurt because they're not taking care of these other aspects of their wellness. And if you get injured, you're not making progress. It's a setback. You have to recover. But what about preventing those injuries from happening in the first place? If you're doing these types of corrective exercise and you're paying attention to this aspect of your training and of your body's function, you're less likely to have setbacks. You're less likely to have these injuries because you're paying attention to shit. You're paying attention to what's going on with your body. So that's where you should start. That's where you should start with your squats. You should start with these mobility exercise in your ankle. If you're unable to get into a full deep squat, you need to work on ankle mobility. You need to work on hip mobility. And that's where I've done content on glute activation with lateral tube walking, doing hip bridges, things that activate the glutes, the gluteus medius and the gluteus maximus. Yoga is fantastic for mobilizing the hips to getting a better balance and having better dynamic posture, being able to get down into that position without as much restriction. When you're elevating your heels all the time, you're shortening your Achilles tendon. You're stiffening up your ankles. So then, because your heels are always elevated and your Achilles tendon's always shortened, guess what? You go down to a squat, you're starting from a shortened, stiffened Achilles tendon position. So it's going to be even harder for you to get into a deep squat. That's why neutral or zero drop shoes is optimal. And being barefoot is optimal because you are not putting that pressure, that shortened environment for your calves. That's a big thing. So those of you that are trying to build calf muscles, you need to really accentuate that stretching position at the bottom of your calf exercises. Don't just do these little short pulses. A lot of people are doing fucking calf raises wearing sneakers. That's the stupidest fucking thing on earth. I mean, we're putting so much tension on these areas of the body while we're wearing these big fucking fluffy pillows. I love seeing people in Nikes doing calf raises. What a waste of fucking time. What a waste of fucking time. You are fundamentally working muscles from an improper position to start. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. You need to, I'm not telling you to take off your shoes, but you should. A lot of people do that for deadlifts and stuff. I'm like, why are you taking off your fucking shoes? Just get better shoes. You don't need to be in socks to fucking do a deadlift. I think that's fucking stupid because then you're wearing shoes all the time and then you're taking off your shoes to do a deadlift. And now you have an imbalance of tension because your body is not used to having that kind of a length in the Achilles tendon. Your body is not used to having no shoes on. So now you're putting your body in even a more risked position because now you're not wearing that supportive shoe that your body has adapted to. So it doesn't necessarily make it better. You can just get better footwear and wear those all the time. And then it won't be an issue. But a lot of people are worried, oh man, it looks so weird. One of those weird little toe shoes. Well, then don't wear them. Have fun with your injuries. Have fun with your imbalances. I don't need your approval to be barefoot. It always baffles me when someone has an issue with that. Like, what? Why do feet bother you? Does seeing someone's toes, is that weird? Why is that weird? Why are Vibrams weird? Because you can see the toes? Oh my God, it's a foot. Fucking pussies. I squat in Olympic shoes and I deadlift in slippers. You squat in Olympic shoes, which shortens your Achilles tendon, which allows you to squat while having a little bit of assisted ankle mobility. That can be beneficial if you have mobility issues. It's not necessary if you don't have mobility issues. Depends on how low you're going, or everyone's different. Some people prefer those. I have lifting shoes. I don't really like them. Moccasins. I don't wear moccasins. I don't know about lifting in moccasins. I don't know about how the toe box is. A lot of with barefoot, the reason why barefoot's so effective, but it's not just being barefoot, because when you wear shoes all the time, your foot has formed differently. It pulls your pinky and your ring toes. It pulls all those toes inward. So just taking off your shoes doesn't fix that because you've been binding your shoes since you were little. Kids are wearing sneakers. So you're actually forming their feet. If you have little kids, take their fucking shoes off. Don't let them wear shoes. Don't put shoes on those little fucking kids. There's plenty of videos online that shows a child being barefoot, walking barefoot, and then walking with sneakers on. And when they walk with sneakers on, they fucking flop around and they fall over and shit. And then when they're barefoot, they're walking fine. Watch one of those comparison videos. It's pretty fucked up when you think about it. So you're binding your children's feet. So when you take off those sneakers now, your foot doesn't just go back to the way it should be. It's still compressed because it's been formed that way, but now you're barefoot. So it's not even still fixed. You're not even in the clear yet. The reason why I mention that, it's because, and I'm not saying I have the exact specific protocol for you to follow, but being barefoot's a start and it's 100% fucking free. You just take your shoes off. But the way the foot's supposed to look, it's supposed to be all splayed out like fingers. Your finger, your pinky toes, and they're supposed to be spread apart more like a web, more like, wide, like a hand. And so you can get things like toe spreaders and stuff that will like gently stretch out your feet and give you a little bit more like those. You could practice yoga and do mobility stuff with these little gel toe separators. But that's why like massage and like mobilizing the tarsals and the metatarsals, not the tarsal, well, and the tarsal's the ankle, but the metatarsals, moving them around, separating, massaging your feet, curling your toes, stepping on a tennis ball, mobilizing those joints that will allow them, all that scar tissue and that restriction over time. And it'll never be necessarily the way it should have been from the beginning. And I wore shoes growing up too. I mean, I was barefoot as well, but of course I wore shoes and I bought shoes. And about 10 or so years ago, when I first got my first pair of Vibrams, I started really getting into barefoot. I went to an extreme. I completely started going barefoot and doing all this, Vibram stuff all the time. And I overtrained because my foot and my bone structure wasn't prepared for it. And I had, some stress fractures and things like that because all of a sudden just completely went barefoot all the time. And the overload was just too much. So I started getting like some pain in my feet. So I backed off a little bit, but then it went away. And you adapt and then you keep on moving forward. I use a muscle ball to roll my feet out. Good. You can use a golf ball. You can use a tennis ball. Good stuff. Stephanie, is there anything I can do to keep the arches of my feet from hurting? For example, they tend to hurt when I'm doing a cardio kickboxing class. Could be just, it could be a bunch of it. It might not be coming from your foot exactly. I mean, I would do more yoga. I would do some stretching. I would do some rolling. I would do some more anterior tibialis activation. Be barefoot more often. I mean, the arches of your feet might be hurting because they're not adapted to it. Maybe you're wearing shoes all day and then going to a cardio kickboxing class and then they're fatiguing. I don't know what you're wearing, to be honest. My mom is incapable of moving her toes. Huh? And was always freaked out by people like me and my sister who can move our toes. And then a physical therapist told her she had problems in those joints and she learned people are supposed to be able to move their toes. Cool. That was a statement. I thought it was a question. People are supposed to be able to move their toes. Yeah, you should. You should. You have hands on your feet, essentially. Not the same as hands. But there's something about connecting with the earth, whether it's concrete, whether it's grass, whether it's gravel. And I'm not saying go run on concrete. I believe you should be sprinting and doing shorter distances, but it should only be on really soft surfaces because the pounding on the joints, I just don't think it's the right thing. I don't think people should be running on pavement. I've been saying that for years. I think running on pavement and shit is fucking brutal. I think it's terrible for the body. It's not natural on earth. If anything, you should be running on grass or sand or something soft. And barefoot. You should be barefoot or wearing minimalist shoes. Anything on a hard surface is just not a good idea. And just because thousands of people do it doesn't make it a good idea. There are a lot of fucking members of the Ku Klux Klan. It's not a good idea. Okay? Just because some people do it doesn't make it a good idea. But a lot of people run on fucking concrete. And it's just, why? Why are you running on a street? Why are you running on a road? And they're not only just doing that, they're running heel to toe and they're just fucking pounding. And those shock waves up their body. That's why people get jacked up. People get jacked the fuck up from running. Not to mention, these are people that are running with poor footwear, poor form. They're sitting down a lot too. They're at a desk or they're in a car and they go and they run a lot. They're just all sorts of imbalanced. And then eventually they need a hip replacement or they have an ACL injury or they have chronic pain or they have this and they take a Motrin for it. And then it's like the cycle of fuckery continues. I just ran a mile on concrete. It was horrendous. Yeah, don't do it. Stop it. Don't do it. Thanks, Emma. I appreciate it. Thank you for everyone that's tuning in on my YouTube channel. Remember, if you want to follow the Daily Swole podcast, the live streams on YouTube, it's the second channel, Daily Swole podcast. So thank you for everyone that has gone over there for watching the live channel, the live podcast there too. At the beach up here in New York, nothing but a bunch of overweight, out of shape people in shoes. Shoes at the beach, and I mean with heels. I don't get it. Who's wearing shoes with heels? Oh, you mean like sneakers with an elevation, or they're wearing high heels at the beach? Weird. Now, of course, if you're not, if I take my shoes off and I go barefoot at the beach and it's really hot in the sun, if you're not used to that, you can fucking pull the skin right off your feet, but it's like you're running on hot coals. If you're in South Florida and you're running on the beach in the summer, got to make sure you cover yourself up. But they make different barefoot shoes. It doesn't mean you have to wear the Vibrams with the toe separation. I think you should be completely barefoot as often as you can. But they make other ones. They make ones with zero toe drop, with wide toe boxes. And you can find ones that work best for you, that make you use your foot more, that demand more from your foot. It's like a little covering that doesn't have the same separation or the same look as the Vibrams. But I like my classics because that's the only one that I've worn that really makes me feel like I'm not wearing anything. It's like a little slipper, and I like it. For longevity, my mobility is very good. I spent a decent amount of time on that side of things. Olympic shoes just feels the most comfortable. Cool. No heels shoes, like wear at work. This guy got... Okay, I don't understand what you're saying there. Steady state running is just stupid in general. I shall only ever run if I'm being chased by a lion, and there are no lions in New Zealand. I'm not a big fan of the steady state, the long distance running. I think sprinting is fine. I think bursts of activity are fine. I think the human body is designed to walk. That's why we can utilize so many fat stores for lower intensity exercise for long periods of time. Long distance running, I don't think is really necessary. I think it's better to do things like intervals. If you're doing interval training, if you're doing Tabata type intensity cardio, rather than just doing steady state. I think if you're going to do cardiovascular activity like a cardio workout, I think it should be intervals, in my opinion. I don't think you should be doing long distance running marathons. I think all those things just wear the body down a lot. Not to say that some people don't do them, not to say that people don't like to do them, right? This is just my opinion, but I don't think that's the best way to be in shape. Marathon runners do not look good physically, and they don't, it's just a lot to carry around. It's a lot to carry around for that much impact for that long. It's just not necessary. You can walk long distances and sprint short ones. It just makes sense. Walking barefoot exposed my major imbalances. I noticed way too much weight on my right foot versus left. Probably explains my lower back pain. Not necessarily, possibly, it's part of it, but just having more weight on one side doesn't necessarily lead to the back pain. It's probably the tension in your Achilles. It's probably the tension or the imbalance from the plantar flexion that you're always in with elevated shoes, with sneakers or heels or boots. So it's all sorts of things. You're going to have asymmetrical shifting. You're going to have imbalances because of the footwear. There's many different ways where you can have back pain. It can come from above and below the hip. So a lot of different things. There's a lot of different reasons. But when you go barefoot, when you do any kind of movement assessment, you want to be barefoot when you're doing that. Any professional would have you go without shoes. That way they can see what your feet are doing. And oftentimes when you have very tight calves, when you have weak feet, for example, when you do a squat, a lot of times the feet will flatten and they'll turn out to improve mobility because you don't have that dorsiflexion. You don't have that travel of the shin, the tibia forward over your foot. So your feet will actually start to rotate out, but then your knees don't follow. So you get this internal rotation or this external rotation of the lower body or the lower leg, and you have this kind of shearing stress because your knees are bending in. So you kind of get that knock-kneed look with the feet splaying out and the feet flattening, and that's very bad because you're putting a lot of pressure on your knee. So a lot of people that have that have imbalances at the foot and ankle complex have issues with the knees and the hips and the lower back because of that imbalance. Either they'll lean forward too much and they could hurt their back, or they'll be putting a lot of pressure on their knees and it could lead to meniscus, ACL, and shit like that. People do ultra marathons. It's crazy. People do a lot of things that are crazy. I just don't think it's a good idea. Hot yoga really helped with the damage from ballet and long distance running for me. Hot yoga, sauna, that type of heat really helps with inflammation for sure. What are your thoughts on sandals, flip-flops, thongs? They're terrible. Flip-flops and those sandals are horrific for walking. They're really bad. They shut down the front of your shin, the top of your foot, because people just shuffle around. They're really bad. You can get good sandals. There's a big difference. You can get good sandals. You can get good barefoot sandals, but a good sandal has a heel strap. A good sandal has a little strap that goes above the back of your heel that kind of looks around. That way you can walk heel to toe. That way you have that ability. If you have a flip-flop, there's only that little pinching your toes. So you squeeze your toes together to hold the flip-flop in place, and then people just shuffle around. So you don't get that full gait. You don't get that glute activation. You don't get that whole effect. You just kind of flop your foot, which really adds impact and also just shuts down the anterior tibialis and the muscles on the top of your foot. What's your go-to leg day routine? For someone starting over with their lifting routine, start with yoga, start with the basics, make sure you're doing your glute activation, start with the basic exercises, higher repetition, lower intensity squats, and make sure you're doing your hip bridges, make sure you're doing your lateral tube walking. You do squats, deadlifts, the basics, Romanian deadlifts, but lightweight, and just go through the form and really focus on your mobility first. It's very easy to jump back in and just start doing squats and going heavy. You need to make sure you're starting off from the right foundation. Good question. Yeah, there's a lot of shitty footwear out there. There's a lot of things that most of us don't think about because just we grew up with them. We grew up with flip-flops. We grew up with sneakers, and I get that, but you're not supposed to be running heel to toe. You're definitely not supposed to be running heel to toe, and I don't think you're supposed to be running on concrete, and I don't encourage that. Just because someone can do something doesn't mean someone should do something. And if you do it once or you do it daily, a big difference if you do it once a month, do it 3 times a week. Some people run outside on concrete every day. A lot of times these people have problems. They have imbalances to start. They don't have proper alignment to begin with. So they're just going and just smashing on their joints, and it leads down a dark path. It leads down a dark path of like just cyclical injury patterns. So you want to avoid that as much as possible. So mobility, number 1, leg training essentials. This episode is really about mobility and really connecting and really getting back to moving properly. And we'll get more into that. I posted a video on Instagram about skier squats. That's more advanced, but I wanted to just share that because I just felt like sharing that exercise demo. So that's a little bit more advanced for mobility, but you'll see in that video how I elevated my heels. Now, there's nothing wrong with elevating your heels for a specific exercise. I'm also wearing my barefoot shoes in the gym, so I'm elevating my heels, but I'm also barefoot. So this is kind of like the position that normally people are in, but when you elevate your heels, you take the ankle mobility out of the picture a little bit. It's like an assistance. So when you elevate your heels, you're assisting yourself with ankle mobility, and a lot of times that's why people like platform shoes, lifting shoes in the gym, because you can get deeper when you elevate your heels because it takes pressure off your body from creating that mobility in the front of your foot and your ankle. So you can get into some deeper positions in that sense. So when I'm doing skier squats when my legs are together, that's really challenging. If I did that on the flat ground, I'd be rounded at the bottom. I wouldn't do it with any weight. It'd be very hard for me to get that kind of range just because of that style of exercise. But elevating the heels takes pressure off, and then you can get into it. So elevating the heels for squats, it's a tool. And I do believe you should consider it and use it as a tool, not a requirement. I don't think you should be elevated for squats all the time. I do not think you should be using platform shoes all the time. I think you should be perfectly able to do a full squat the same way without those shoes. And if you can't, you have mobility issues and they should be addressed as soon as possible. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me for episode 1114 of the Most Muscular Swolecast, Beardcast, Broadcast, Gangcast, Mancast, Pimpcast, Sleevescast, and Slaycast in the realm. Because when I flex, you flex, we all flex our biceps. Tomorrow is Sunday Fun Day Q&A, so show up, ask any questions you want. I'll be posting another question sticker in my Instagram story just to get us started, but make sure that you turn on your post notifications so you don't miss tomorrow's episode. Ask any question. I'll be answering any question that you have tomorrow during the episode. So I'll see you then. Peace, McGeese. Deuce, Magoose. Your boy, Papa Swole. Out.